And now it's my pleasure to turn the podium over to Governor Cullum, a longtime broadcaster herself, who was chairman of the Talk Radio First Amendment Committee and a former president of the National Association of Radio Talk Show Hosts. In her years on the BBG, the governor has traveled around the world in support of media freedom. She is a strong advocate for the Voice of America and its mission, and she is superbly qualified to honor VOA's Ukrainian service. Governor.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. And it's really more than just a pleasure, it's an honor to be here with you this morning. And I have to tell you, after having been there 5 years ago, I really understand the great contribution that VOA and our international broadcasters have made. You know, we have an important history that we have with Ukraine through our mission of providing balanced and really intelligent news and information. And I look back with great pride. It's a very impressive retrospective in our role that we played in covering the Orange Revolution. With reports of election fraud and protests in the street, VOA was a major contributor to Channel 5 programming. In fact, only one of 2 televised sources available nationally providing accurate news of unfolding events. And no doubt there are people in this room who will vividly remember the face of our own Miroslava Gongadze, who filled the Jumbotron on Maidan Square in Kiev. And if you remember, it was huge. It was a huge Jumbotron. And literally thousands upon thousands of people were in the square. And who is out there broadcasting but Miroslava? I mean, you talk about how impressive that was at that time to see VOA and our own journalists there. I think we have to give her a nice round of applause for the great work that she did on that day. You know, with extensive reporting from well-developed in-country journalist network, as well as interviews of U.S. and European policymakers, VOA's coverage carried a great importance to the protesters for another election, which they did get in late December of 2004. And as I mentioned, I had the very great pleasure and honor of visiting Kiev about 6 months later in June of 2005, along with 4 of our people, including Adrian, who was there. And it was amazing, not just to be struck by the beauty of Ukraine, but what had happened and that transition and that really serious move towards not just freedom and independence, but freedom of press. And I was very impressed that rather than just meeting with one board member, their equivalent of our BBG or the FCC, along with Adrian, as I mentioned, we met with many others who expressed their strong support for the expansion of VOA's presence on the air, which continues to this day. And a year earlier, as you remember, the government had shut down VOA's affiliate station, Radio Continent. We met with our partner at that time, the television station Channel 5. And the outcome of the events in Ukraine was not preordained, and individual acts of bravery are not to be forgotten. And I wanted to share this story with you because I thought this act of bravery was so important that you should be reminded if you don't already know. I remember the hearing about Natalia Dmytruk, who was a sign language interpreter for the Ukrainian state television. And she was angered by the state's complicity in the cover-up of the election fraud. And what happened was basically, you know, they were threatened in the station not to say anything, not to react. And what she did, which was so amazing with her sign language, is she broke from the script, and in sign language she said, "Do not trust the results of the Central Election Committee. They are all lies." And then she walked off. It was incredible. I mean, in fact, that act was so symbolic, it really carried a lot of power. According to a Washington Post article at the time, her silent live signal helped to spread the news, and more people began spilling into the streets to contest the vote. And of course, they were watching our VOA broadcast on the Jumbotron. There's kind of a bittersweet irony in seeing the newly restored St. Michael's Golden Dome, that, given that it had been turned into rubble by Stalin, who was in the power at the time the broadcasts were being done by VOA into Ukraine. But now that it's just impressive. It looks like it's just gorgeous. While Ukraine is now independent and has experienced tremendous change, our mission, our VOA mission, remains constant and as critical as ever. So now, as Ukraine is preparing for its January presidential campaign, we hope that it upholds its commitment to freedom of the press. And let's not forget, a free press was not handed down or inherited. The concept of free press was deliberately constructed by framers of our Constitution to instill the spirit of independence as a crucial ingredient in the creation of a free society. This was a quote from Jerry Friedheim of the American Newspaper Publishers Association back in 1986. VOA has an astonishing audience reach of nearly 12% of the adults in the audience, and we hope to play a lead role as a model of free and unbiased press during the current campaign and beyond.